Hi, my name is Trevor Sullivan, a Microsoft MVP for Windows PowerShell, and I'm also the Curriculum Director for Microsoft Azure training content at Cloud Academy. In this video, I would like to spend a few minutes to show you how you can very quickly get started with Docker on Windows 10. So I've got a vanilla Windows 10 system here, and what we want to do is deploy a WordPress instance using Docker on top of our Windows 10 system. So the first thing that we're going to need is what's called the Docker Toolbox. The Docker Toolbox contains a variety of tools that run on both Mac and Windows that allow you to rapidly get started with Docker. It includes the Docker engine, which is managed by the Docker command line utility, but we're not going to worry about that for the purposes of this demo. It also includes Docker Compose, which is a command line utility that allows you to combine a series of Docker containers together and deploy them as a single application. Next, we have Docker Machine, which is another command line tool that allows us to manage Docker hosts. And a Docker host is simply a virtual machine that is hosting Docker containers. Finally, we come to the tool that we're actually going to talk about today, which is Kitematic. Now, Kitematic is a really cool tool because it's a graphical interface that allows us to very quickly get started with Docker if we're new to it. So the first thing you're going to do is install this Docker Toolbox for your platform. In this case, we're using the Windows 10 version. The next thing you're going to need as a dependency for this demonstration is VirtualBox. VirtualBox is a simple hardware virtualization solution that Kitematic directly integrates with. So what happens is when we launch Kitematic, which we'll do right now, it's going to automatically create and start up a Docker host for us on VirtualBox. So this reduces the need for us to manually manage any type of Docker hosts. After you get familiar with Docker, you'll be able to create your own Docker hosts and manage them centrally using tools like Docker Swarm. Now, Kitematic is going to start up here and actually invoke the virtual machine that is running inside VirtualBox. So right now that Docker host is actually powered off because Kitematic actually will shut it down when you exit it. But Kitematic, as you can see, is going to start up that virtual machine instance and make sure that it's running properly. If you don't have any VirtualBox VMs already, that's okay because Kitematic actually creates it for us. So I simply ran Kitematic in advance before this video and went ahead and created the VM. Then I simply shut it down so that we could actually watch Kitematic start it up. So in the VirtualBox Manager, you can see that virtual machine, that Docker host, is now running. And it's simply running a Linux operating system called boot to Docker, which already contains the Docker engine pre-installed. So once Kitematic has verified that Docker host is up and running, we'll go ahead and deploy a couple of containers to it. Now that the Docker host is running, we can go ahead and use the Kitematic utility to deploy container instances to it. Now, you can optionally log into the Docker Hub that allows you to register custom images in a private repository. However, we're going to skip that step for the time being and keep the process very simple. The first thing we're going to do, because WordPress has a dependency on MySQL, is launch a MySQL container. So we'll go ahead and search for MySQL on the Docker Hub, which is basically a registry of images that are pre-built. We'll go ahead and just click Create. So what Kitematic is going to do at this point is instruct the Docker host that's running inside VirtualBox to go out to the Docker Hub, download the MySQL image, and then create a new container from that MySQL image. So now we have a new container instance that's running the MySQL database engine. We automatically have a port mapping here, and we'll go ahead and customize that with our own port. Now, we're going to get a little log message here from the MySQL container saying that the database is uninitialized because this is a brand new container instance, and we need to specify the root password for the container. So we're going to copy this environment variable called MySQL root password, and then we're going to go over to the settings for the container. Under the environment variables, we're going to paste the environment variable name, and then we will type a value. So in this case, we'll use Cloud Academy and 2 exclamation points, for the MySQL root password. We'll click the Save button, and then we'll switch back over to the home screen. As you can see, the container instance has automatically picked up on the fact that we changed that environment variable, and it's now restarting that container so that it will become a fully running MySQL Server instance. Now that we have a MySQL Server running, we need to go ahead and create a WordPress instance. So let's do that now while this is finishing the provisioning process. So we'll click on the New button here, and then we'll go ahead and search the Docker Hub for a WordPress image. After finding the official WordPress image, we'll go ahead and click on the Create button. Very similar to the MySQL container instance process, Docker is going to download the WordPress image from the Docker Hub, and this is all happening on the Docker host, not on our actual Windows 10 instance. So the Docker host is going to download that container image and then create a new container from it, which it's just done right now. Very similar to the MySQL container, we're going to be prompted for a couple of environment variables for WordPress. It's going to ask us to provide a MySQL Server instance. So what we're going to do is grab the access URL that allows us to access the MySQL instance running inside the Docker container. So let's switch back over to the WordPress instance here, and as you can see, the WordPress DB host environment variable is the one that we want to set in order to allow WordPress to connect to the MySQL instance. So we'll go over to the settings for the WordPress container, and under the environment variables, we'll go ahead and paste the environment variable name. Next, we need to switch back to the MySQL instance here, and remember the port 32769. We'll go back over to the WordPress instance, go to Settings, and edit the WordPress environment variable, the WordPress DB host variable, and we'll just type in 192.168.99.100.32769. Let's go ahead and save the environment variables, and we'll switch back over to the Home tab. The WordPress container is automatically going to pick up on that environment variable change, and it's going to restart the container so that we can pick up on that change and actually connect to the MySQL instance. Now that we have set the WordPress DB host, we also have to set the WordPress DB password environment variable. This allows WordPress to connect to the MySQL instance. So let's go back over to Settings. We'll go to the environment variables, add in the WordPress DB password environment variable, and set it to the root password for the MySQL instance. We'll go ahead and click Save, and the container will restart one more time in order to connect to that MySQL instance. We've now finished the configuration of the WordPress container. So what we want to do is go ahead and set up a public port for us to connect to on the container. Now there's already been a port pre-configured, so we can actually access the WordPress instance by navigating to 192.168.99.100 port 32772. We'll go ahead and switch over to our web browser, and we'll open up a new browser tab, and then we'll navigate to http://192.168.99.100:32772. So this is going to connect to our WordPress container that's running inside of our Docker host inside VirtualBox, and will be presented with the initial setup screen for WordPress. We're now running a new WordPress instance, so we'll just run through the configuration here. We'll go ahead and give it a site title like Docker is cool. We'll give it a username like Trevor. We have an auto-generated password here, so we'll just go ahead and copy that. And we'll go ahead and type our email address. We'll go ahead and click Install WordPress, and we're now completed with the WordPress installation process. So the next thing we'll do is simply log into our WordPress instance, and we can start managing it. Great, so the WordPress installation completed successfully. We'll click Login, and then we'll provide the credentials that we just set up. So I'll type Trevor here as the username, and then go ahead and paste in the password that was automatically generated for me. If I click the login button here, I can now go to the administrative interface in WordPress and start building out my WordPress site. That's all there is to getting started with Docker. It's very easy using VirtualBox and Kitematic locally, and once you're comfortable with Docker locally, you can then deploy containers to cloud providers like Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, and Google Cloud Platform. For more information about Cloud Academy, check us out online at cloudacademy.com. Thanks, and see you next time.